Hello, church. Happy Sunday. It's time to praise God again. So if you're at home, I encourage you to praise God with me in whatever shape or form, whether you praise God through singing or just meditating on His Word. Let's unite as one church and praise our God. All right. And so I have 3 songs today for us. May these songs encourage you.
Clouds behind and life secure. Good morning, everyone. Nhớ rong to ya sơn gió nó, nụ nó na kế bây giờ continue cái hồ ya công bố châu ý. We're going to continue our studies through James chapter 1 this morning. For the past couple of weeks, Sifu Julhao and Sifu Jufeng have already led us through a number of the verses here in James chapter 1. But this morning, continue from verses 16 to 18. And these are some things that we need to be reminded of as we go through difficult times. And so just continuing to build off of the background of this letter that James has written, he writes to the believers. Ni chỉ số ít chán đỡ một khi đâu lời tu cái lời làm chính và chỉ ta chỉ chán đỡ nói ni những thót sự sâu một đôi giàu đứng chính lợi giàu và đứng chính lợi thế là cho cái cho nhẹ là cho cái ở nhiều đồ lời vì lời cho kinh chính này cái số chán đỡ nó đồ lời cái lời tao tao hay thế kinh chính chỉ sự yêu lý gia thế kinh chính và chữ rong lý gia lúc này như chữ rong lý gia nó vậy thôi ni pi chán đỡ nó này cái khi đâu lời thế thôi bé thôi tê cái nhốt là trâu bé nó chỉ bé yo tí tàu lý trả thế bé yo bé yo how we would continue to endure during hard times, and so this is how James begins this letter that he writes to believers. And so let me read for us verses 16 through 18. From the NIV, he says, Don't be deceived, my brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits for all he created. So the context of this passage is that James is writing to the believers. And we believe that this is a very early letter, possibly way even before Paul begins to write his letters. And so this is James' letter to encourage the believers, very well be the very first believers in history who have received the message of the gospel and have put their faith in Jesus Christ. And so he's admonishing them, he's encouraging them, he's reminding them of the truths that they have submit themselves to when they come into faith in Jesus. But because this is the very early years of the church is facing a lot of persecution and a lot of different things because of their faith and because of what they believe. And throughout this time, now we have to encourage and remind each other, because it is not uncommon. It is something that we actually experience even to this day, that we go through things, that living is real and this life is real, and so we have a lot of experiences in this lifetime, and a lot of them brings us joy, but a lot of them are hard times that we need these kinds of reminders to remember that there are reasons why, and that even Sifu Julhao and Sifu Jufeng has already brought us through when God brings us through trials. It's not that God is tempting us, but he brings us through trials to mature us. And that's going to be a big key factor for us this morning as well. To be reminded of what Sifu Jufeng has already brought us through. Remember last week, he brought us through the previous verses where it talks about when we endure through our trials and we become more mature, then we actually receive the crown of life. And that should be something that we look forward to. But then if you're like me, then the follow-up question is, how do we endure? The bit of kinh doanh bây giờ chủ我叫我第到底呀我nhiều là trâu bé thế tổ bé cho kinh doanh cái có kho nó cái lo lụ bé chủ nông tận đây nó cái How can we start to endure? And so from verses 16 to 18, then now James gives us some great reminders that we need to remember as we continue to endure. Now, verse 16 begins right away, and it says, "Do not be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters." So this is something that James is very concerned about, because while we go through trials, we have a tendency to now confuse the differences between our trials, our hard times, versus temptation. And so Sifu Chufeng has already covered that at length last week, and so I won't go into a lot of details, but just with verse 16, we have to remember to draw those ideas together, because we want to make sure that we don't confuse those things. Because how can God bring us through something difficult and not be tempting us to sin, right? And so these are the thoughts that we begin to confuse ourselves with. So God brings us through trials with the opportunities that we would actually grow and mature in our faith. So, but not temptation, which would then lead us to fall into sin, which is the ultimate doom. That is the big concern for us as believers. Last week, Sư Chủ Phong do cho bé lo cờ cho hay给我洗鞋的给我对呀妞我叫bé mu trâu cái bé lo nè bé kinh doanh này ya ở ya giờ này ya để rồi chỉ ấy từ我洗bé鞋cái bé bông mu đó cái草但是chỉ ya ấy từ我叫bé mu đó cái妞cái bé lo nè bé kinh doanh. 但是也别知道那个可能有被民众 confused 的那样，那个头也讲不少，然后个各州那个你还没明的个被到中被提起被知道州大的被知道帮到给走。And then as we go on further, the first thing that we need to be reminded of is that God gives good gifts. Verse 17, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. And so the first part of this verse is that every good and perfect gift is from above, that it is actually from God. One thing that we often forget, and one thing that we often take for granted, is the good things in our lives. Like even during this time, Lucy her not what be should have done nyop chain na yo. Be chin yaw there to be to mu ta la to mun ji be pong yu to mu ho lu to mu chua ya ho chau. Be to te ya no yin yo te ya wo drinking do be ta shi zo Lucy her no or te no chu more be zo there be mu chi tao le na ke and so there's so many people right now who are upset at the government for the stay-at-home order, because they all of a sudden remember all of their precious freedoms that they took for granted not too long ago. Being able to just come and go, being able to just go to the store, being able to just go to work. All these things that are precious gifts that are given to us, that we take for granted. Now, all of a sudden, when we reach a time such as this, we realize, like, oh yeah, this is something that was important to me. But at the time, see, I didn't treat it as such. And so one thing that trials does for us is that it reminds us. It reminds us that these are actually precious things. These are gifts that are given to us, and things that we should actually treat it as such a gift. And that we should remember that God is the giver. A lot of times when we receive good things, when we receive good things, that we appreciate the thing, we get so focused on the thing, the gift itself, that we don't remember that it was God who gave it. That the point of the whole thing wasn't the gift, but the point of the whole thing was the giver. That our ideas, our attention should always be drawn towards Him, because from Him all things come. Yet the bill so they she has only not to the ya when you drop a drop a young John had the so ya or Jean or pay each tao in long the virtue. Yet a bit out there, Jean had the pay or chew, co they are no, tell who they are not that she pay or young John with the virtue to a poodle pay. Because God is the giver. Because the point of all of this is Him. So even when we forget about the good things that we have, then we've dismissed how much God has loved us. But sometimes we do remember the thing, but we focus so much on the thing that we forget about Him still, because He was the one who gave it to us in the first place. And so we should always remember that God is the giver of good things, all the good things. Now, as we go to the second part of that verse, we're still in verse 17. As we go to the second part of that verse, now we get to unpack who God is exactly. So the first thing that we need to remember is that good gifts, all good and perfect gifts come from God. But see, who is God? And so in the second part of that verse, then James uses it to remind us of who God is. And he explains to us by revealing to us parts of God's nature, the nature of God, so that we would be reminded that yes, all good gifts do come from God. See, but then the point is that we remember the giver, and this is who the giver is. He describes God as the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. And if we read through that very quickly, then we will miss all of the really great, beautiful nuggets in these few phrases. The first thing that he describes God as the Father of heavenly lights. This is a beautiful expression of just talking about God's goodness and just how good God is. And we have to remember that since the beginning, when God gave all things, when God created all things, and when God made all things, He said it was good. And it has been God's desire ever since the beginning of time to continue to do good, to continue to give good things, so that His children, so that we, as we remember Him, as we reflect His image, that we would do the same. That the good things we have, we should be reminded of how good God is, as God is the giver. And that when we take on His image, then we need to reflect that and be good as well. He calls us to be good. 第一我雅各布la kerpe zovachu na kenya de vachu ya is the Father of heavenly lights. Khetso de vachu ya tu zong chapler na ya de ya zong yin long de vachu. Ya cho ya wo beto zai cho ya zong wo beto zai na ke yin long de vachu ho vachu ya tu zong. And then the second part of that verse, he goes on to say that He does not change like shifting shadows. And this goes into one crucial point of God's character and nature of who God is that He doesn't change. So one of the things that we have to remember is that God has always been God. So when we reach moments that are difficult for us, for some reason, all of a sudden it feels like God is no longer with us. All of a sudden God is far away. All of a sudden God has changed. All of a sudden He was happy in one moment and now He's angry. Which God does get angry, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that in our trials we all of a sudden shift and change our ideas of God, but that we need to be reminded, and James does a great job here in reminding us that you probably have changed and shifted in your thinking because of all the trials that you have gone through. See, but God hasn't changed. God's still God. See ya combo lọc hero pe the va chu ya itu va chu wo chi long. Rồi tập bé là trâu tê ya và nhô đồ bé tê ya và đồ bên chó xe này kì bé mua ý ya cái sa hay tê và chữ lòng lợ này ya tê rồi nó kia đến được bé lợ tê rồi nó chỉ rồi bé lợ tê rồi nó uất tê ya nó đồ bé na mò nữ yên lưu bé cần go thế bé tàu chạy tê ya complete rồi rong ta chỉ nó chỉ rồi bé này kì bé là trâu tê ya và nhô đồ bé lợ này ya giờ bây giờ tao tao thì bây lúc họ bây lúc nên nói những mua tàu giả ở những yếu sống những mua tây giả nu ở những ở bên rong xe tây nu ở bên chợ xe về tây xe hậu ở ở nhiều ở bên ta chỉ bây từ vài chữ ở chỉ lòng nếu chỉ要từ cũ nếu chỉ要từ ở lưu bên cần go nếu chỉ要từ ở nhỏ trên的bên是的。And I just think it's so important for us to remember that when we go through whatever we go through, because in this lifetime, in this world, in all of our experiences, we will come to moments and times when all of a sudden, maybe God isn't who I thought He was. Maybe God isn't who the Bible is explaining to me that He is. But that we should remember that shadows are the ones that shift, that we are the ones that change, that the circumstances around us are that which changes. See, but God is always the same. He's still God. Ever since the very beginning, He wanted good things, to now, He still wants good things. He still calls us back into what is good for us. Then we go to verse 18. In verse 18, James reminds us, as he reminds the believers during that time, and for us to remember that the first readers of this letter that James is writing to are the very first believers in history. And so he calls them back to remind them that he says this in verse 18, He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all He created. It's by God's choice. This is this phrase, and you can look at it in several different translations, but it's this phrase that brings us to an understanding that God is working a decision, and His choice and what He decides is to give us birth through the word of truth. And so it is, and so James draws us back to the message of the gospel. Tàu biết là cho đâu gây cầu gì nó chỉ biết tàu hay thì ya combo cho biết là cá lò cái bên gió cho thì trong mông rong ở bên đi tàu nó là giờ ra chỉ này ya thì đi giờ vì trong mông rong ở bên tàu nó thì bên tàu lon jeng thì bên tàu lọt dài này cái bên mà tàu cho xe chia ya combo hay thì bên tàu yêu đồ chia này ya. And so what does this mean for us? This is a great way for James to wrap up this passage. So he begins in the very beginning of this chapter by addressing to the readers right away that they're going through hard things. He recognizes that they're going through hard things, but it's through the trials where God allows opportunity for us to endure so that we grow. And when we have endurance, then we grow to maturity. And to maturity in Him and in faith in Him. And by that, then we acquire the crown of life. And so he's kind of wrapping up this whole section, and he's wrapping up this whole passage by reminding us of who we are because we've received the message of grace, because we've received the gospel of Jesus. That the point of all of this, When we understand that God gives good gifts, when we understand that, yes, all of these things that we go through are to test us, not so that we would fall into sin, but to test us so that we would endure and so that we would actually mature. Then we would actually finally become the first fruits of what God was trying to do. Now, once we receive this, and once we understand, then we have to then come and once we receive this and once we understand, then our goal in our life should be then to grow and mature. One of the things that's hardest for us as Christians right now, especially here in the West, especially here in America, is to believe that actually Christianity is really hard. And so, even though we hear it all the time, even though preachers preach it, and we get it when we read the scriptures and we read the Bible, but when we actually practice our Christianity, we just can't conceive that it's supposed to be difficult. And so when we reach a moment where it's actually hard, all of a sudden we start to think that something's wrong, that something is not working, that there's actually a mistake that was made somewhere along the way. Instead of realizing that this is just all part of the process, that the difficulties and the trials that come are just part of the process. And as we go back to the beginning of James chapter 1, James actually even says we should find it an opportunity to be joyful when we go through hard times. Because now this is an opportunity for us to mature in our faith. And we should desire to mature in our faith. Maturity is something that we earn through trials. No one is just all of a sudden mature in their faith. 給我俾落落的俾見證，給我俾波打的俾見證，俾我住到給我尿到俾佢俾地道俾啲落落的俾見證。只麼一令到我記你論證不住，我你記到見證我記你落落嚟先。Nobody can actually just all of a sudden believe and have a mature faith. But you actually have to go through the trials to reach maturity. And so why is it that we continue to convince ourselves that these trials aren't supposed to come, that these trials are somehow a mistake for us? These trials are actually for us. It's part of the gift. It's part of what God gives us as we grow and as we continue to develop. One last thing I want to just say is when we turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, so Paul says the same thing, very similar thing as James. Paul himself acknowledges to the church in Corinth, from verse 8 on, he says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast and all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong. Paul understands this full well. And if we're going to use anyone in all of history as a prime example of a mature Christian, it would be Paul. Paul is someone who delights in his weaknesses, in the insults that come on to him, in the hardships, in the persecutions, and difficulties. Because in his weakness, he's actually strong. But then I love the message that he actually gets from God when he goes to God. When he goes to God and pleads that God would take away this difficulty, this hardship from him, God says, my grace is sufficient for you, turning him back to the message of the gospel. That the fact that I love you, the fact that I've saved you, the fact that I've made a way for you to come back to me is all but enough for you. That me taking this away shouldn't be anything that you would desire in addition, but that this would just be enough. And so, my brothers and sisters, I pray for all of you that God would be enough for you. That through all that's happening now, through everything, all the trials, all the difficulties, everything that we're all facing now, whether your hours got cut, whether you lost your job, whether you're trying to figure out what all of this means, whether your family is driving you nuts at home, that Jesus be enough for you, and that your life would reflect that as you mature in him. Bless you in Jesus' name.
Hi, nhớ rồi bên trên. Tan cho bé tu sĩ phu thiê, bé tu nè sĩ phu, nó cho bé cho sĩ chế, cho niệm chế, nó cho bé cho dân số đời nhớ thì chơi. Lúc xí hỏi mua cam mò là tao đến đấy nó bé cũng chỉ tao tua bé hỏi vắt chữ ok nó nè số đời nhớ thì trả lời nè bố nó cá nhớ rong thiê, đỡ con niệm gì nó cho cho mình tum nhuận, nó cho chế này bé bố lên nó cá nhớ rong nữa. Bố lên nó cá nhớ rong ta xí lúc xí hỏi đến đấy chỉ bé chỉ tao tua bé hỏi bé tu vắt chữ ok, bé chỉ tao tua thì chơi chỉ biết chụp bọn này số đời yên cho này số đời cơ sao có tụ cam nó đồ chơi chua bé tua bé hỏi bé tụ văn chữ bé thế sinh chi nữa của hai bé nó to sai này số đời trong đời chuyện này chỉ bé bộ lần nó cá nhau trong một tụ cam này chỉ bé nhau vào hỗ trợ là tu chế khó vào khó chế nó xứ chế nên nó nhau vào hỗ trợ ứ chữ mua hậu lựa qua trời tao họ lửa quá cứ trời chỉ tao bông họ lửa thế khi tao bé phân chân sau đó bao lên đó quaวันchỉ trâu khóวันchỉ pu trên này cũng nó cá nhau rong thế mua làm một cả qua trời tao la tao cả qua thế khi này sau đó bao nữa nhau rong à
Hi, nhớ rằng là nhớ rằng tôi bé chọn sang sự đời thia nhớ rằng tôi bé tu sĩ phương tôi bé tu nhà sĩ phương tôi nên chỉ năng sự đời tí xí nó hạ bé là nó tôi sai bé sự đời à tôi có tiền chỉ nên để bé sự tôi bé hiểu bắt chữ ok chị bé nhân do này cứ thế nào cũng tiền này bọn cho bé đó chỉ bé do này cứ là chỉ xí bỏ đi chị nhân do này liền trong xe họ tàu tuần chỉ nên nhớ đồ đầy video nó xứ thì nó theo đó nên sự đời tiệp bé là cô nó cái nhớ rong thia cô chỉ nó bé chọn chơi thì chơi sự đời mong là tới chỉ cuốn chơi tiệp sự đời như tàu dài cái nó cái nhớ rong về ô ba chỉ trâu họ ba chỉ trâu cử bé sự đời tàu dài cái nó cái nhớ rong thì nó cú chứ chỗ họ lừa thia bé lúc company cú mới bé lấy off là nhớ tàu anh thì là cú hồ bé đặt cái mỏ họ lừa thia thì bé trên hình sự đời tên tôi nhỏ là cú phải lên chỗ họ lừa cô nó bé xin chỉ thì nó sẽ là trên thế chia sẻ thì nhà giờ thì nó bé giờ tôi xin chỉ là thế thảo văn chỉ phòng có món đồ bé chọn trên sẽ là chỉ hay cho chín trên chọn trên cứ tin nên cha sẽ là có sẽ tôi dạy cái nó cái nhau rồi bé xin chỉ đồ này
nhớ rong cho sư phụ thia cho nên sư phụ sẽ đợi số lượng số tu đó đó bé chọn sang sẽ đợi chứ tồn đây là bé tôi bé hỏiว่า chữ ok bé nhìn chọn đi sẽ đợi cái gì thế nào đi sẽ đợi của nó cá nhân rong đó bé cho nên tu là bé cũng chẳng nó cá nhân rong thia chúng mà đã chỉ nữa đó cũng tu khăng là cũng chẳng nghe nói mà họ lại cố thia họ có tôi mình nhỏ lo này thầu thia nó người là người cô chẳng nên nó họ lừa thia thì xin cái họ nhớ họ chế họ cô tôi em lên trên nữa cô chỉ cần tới thia nữa cô cần online thia sữa em bé sẽ được một lần nào cá nhân rong nữa em cô chẳng nên nó mà họ lừa cô thọ này sẽ được họ thọ chữ ba là cô có hình như cái nó cá nhân rong thia em chẳng thia cái xe thì trên đây nó bây giờ tôi sẽ bỏ nữa nhân chọn đi sẽ được cái lý thia ứng chi đi sẽ được đi nó sửa nhớ rong đi nữa.
Bye guys, we miss you guys.
nhớ rồi bây giờ chết tung rồi xe nó là xử lýตัวสอนnó thếตัวไทยไปเจนนึงrồi xeไปเจนนึงเราไปเล่นnó cá nhân rồi chứ chúng mình camera chỉ thế thì rồi xe mà chỉ trồng thế hai đứa sau đó cho lên số tuổi thì bây giờไปเล่นnó cá nhân rồi chứ nhà chia sẻ thì nhà mà chỉ nó để sau đóไปเล่นchứ thì nó cá nhân rồi đi giải thôi bộ lùi đi.
Okay.
nhớ rồi chọn chơi bây giờ là xong hai từ nữa chỉ nên để chỉ tao tôi bây giờ ăn chữ cho phê lúc tổ trẻ chú mẹ cơ lên rồi giờ ít xong lên là sẽ mẹ sụt là nhớ rong nó tệ phụ hai chỗ hả ấy tệ mua mai ít nó chả nó trâu rong lên luôn tôi phụ hô ha luôn ha hoặc là họ lên làm dù luôn tôi nhớ sẽ làm chữ cô dù nhớ để lên cho là nhớ là xíu rồi ở trâu luôn
Xin chào hello.
nhớ rong mà
nhớ rong
bây giờ
bây giờ giả xuống nhớ rong chẳng chừng là sẽ để xí bữa nó cá nhân rong chỗ này là chả nhớ chả thế
Alê sẽ là
nhớ rồi giờ thành công thì bên tụi nó chỉ muốn mua cam mò là chỉ bé chỉ nhau vào chế sứ những chỉ cắt tàu đi thế thì mua từ nó những bò còn dâu còn chưa thế sứ gì chưa tua mình chỉ là sáng là mình chỉ thế sứ thế vào lửa mình cũng lo thế sứ nhưng trong trái cây tụi nó bây giờ tao lùm tao la đi à
nhớ học chế tôi luôn tự
Hãy subscribe cho kênh Ghiền Mì Gõ để không bỏ lỡ những video hấp dẫn No.
My name is Kenny.
Ai nhớ rồi. Giờ qua. Nhớ rồi mấy chân chơi số lấy số tụ nữa, nó xứ tôi tụ này biết chơi nó. Xứ tôi thay về. Lúc sau nó mua corona hết gì. Về nhà tôi nhà chạy ta chỉ tôi xin gì đấy. Và hết giờ sao ta mà chỉ phụ có muốn cho số lấy số tụ số kia. Nhớ mà nó chơi là nó cả nhớ rồi chỉ mua nhà đất chi. Đó mà chỉ phụ có muốn mấy số lấy số tụ nữa. Hả là? Ồ, hả ta là. Vậy nó cứ用啥sữa tụi tôi sẽ biết ha. Đó mà chứ phụ có một hai cho sữa là sữa tụi tôi kể cả xong chỉ nhận tới mẹ chỉ ở tụi ha. Dùng sao?
All right, here is Nushua and Sivang. So nên nhớ là chào. And coronavirus luôn nè sáng lên chào. Chạy hình hả?
Isolated. We miss you. We miss church. They need you, man. They need your church. You people of church.
All right.
We'll be happy to be finally go back and united again.
And we had them come and visit us, so they're here eating dinner with us.
For 2 months.
Hopefully everybody is staying healthy and keeping busy and using this time well.
All right.
Relax and enjoy yourself.
Marcus, anything you want to say? All right, and there's Trinity in the back. And we've got Joy and Elizabeth and our friend Daniela here visiting. This is going to be a little video for church. Hi, so how has it been for you guys being on coronavirus shutdown?
I'm making clothes for my skeleton son.
Ah, okay.
School's alright.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you guys. Glad to have you here, Daniela. And this is our meal for tonight.
Peace.
Peace and blessings.